Hey, honey.
Yeah, what's up?
Hey, everybody. I'm Fen. This is Retro Reviews, review show where we go through my copious amounts of gaming books, magazines, and other paraphernalia one at a time. And to keep me from rambling, we have Laura.
Hey, everybody. So to keep us on track, I'm going to ask a list of questions.
Go ahead.
So what are we reviewing tonight?
Tonight we've got Dragon Magazine number 305.
Okay, and was this one from the subscription?
This is also a subscription one.
Okay. Do you want to give us a quick synopsis?
Alright, this one is urban adventure themed, so a bunch of the articles are all about like doing D&D in the city instead of like out in the wilderness and in the dungeons.
Okay. So what's the articles?
The articles are starting with Up on a Soapbox, Gary Gygax's monthly column of stories from the early days of D&D. This one talks about how a monk planned to get even with an annoying mage's apprentice by basically turning the mage's tower into a barber pole, red and white striped all the way down. The wizard came out the next morning, monk thought he was going to be all mad and upset. He's all like, "From this day forth, shall be known as the striped wizard." And we're like, "Oh, this is amazing!" And it's like, "Oh, everybody knows how to get to me now." Yeah. So it was just a lesson on how getting even does not usually ends up putting the other person ahead. Next article is House Rules. It was a new column they had started. This one's talking about the limiting of metamagic feats to once per day. Because metamagic feat was like something you would do to adjust the spell, and based on how you adjusted it, it would like bump it up in power level. So you could basically make it be like, this spell can go further, or this spell I normally have to touch someone with, I can just shoot a ray at them and heal them from across the room. So it was like, yeah, you could. Some players and DMs kind of thought like a bunch of the metamagic feats were a little bit broken, and they wanted to tone it back in a little bit.
Yeah.
Next article is where we dive into the urban adventures. This one is Urban Heroes. Notes on making city-based adventures. We got some new feats, which when you took them, you had to name a city, and you got that ability only when you're in that city. It's kind of a little... With how hard it was to get feats, it kind of felt to me like a bit of a waste to buy those, but, you know, one of them is good enough to waste a feat on. And
Are they like real cities? Like if you're in Chicago, you can use
well, if the D&D game that you're playing is in somehow in the city of Chicago, in this fantasy world, then yeah, you can use that feat while you're in Chicago. You can't use it while you're in the real world. But it represents like abilities certain people have in real world cities, like being known for having good manners in Chicago gives you a +2 to your social skills while you're in that city.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm asking, like, is it like real Chicago or like
Fantasy Chicago.
Okay.
Good Neighbor gives you +4 to your charisma checks. So if you're known for being Mr. Rogers in his neighborhood, gets +4 to his charisma. Hometown Advantage. No, this does not give you a bonus to sports. It gives you a bonus to hide and spot. But it's a +3 bonus. So if you live in the city, been there enough, you know the field, you can hide from people that are like...
It makes sense. If you know the area, you know all the good hidey holes.
But the one I thought was pretty good, especially if you're going to be in the city all the time.
Yeah.
And you're a thief. Or you're trying to hunt down thieves in the city. The one I thought was actually usable and a really good use of a feat is Line of Credit, which allowed you to actually have basically a credit card for the specific city that was like your charisma score. So if you had like an 18 charisma, you could times that by 100 gold, and that's how much gold you could have to be like, hey, I want to use my line of credit, pick up this like 1,800 gold piece worth piece of equipment. I'll pay you back in a month. Just let me get this right now on credit. I thought that was a cool feat to have. It's like you have a credit account in the city.
I mean, also makes sense because people are like, oh yeah, we know you.
We know you. We can let you. Yeah. We also get 3 character builds, not prestige classes or stuff like that. It's like a little map of how to build the character. Like, take this many levels of this many levels of this, and it goes from like level 1 to 20. So there's like the aristocratic thief, which takes levels of rogue, bard, fighter, spy master, and shadow dancer to gain like these cool little abilities where they're like, I'm an aristocrat, but I like to steal from everyone else. So you know the social manipulations and fighting and stuff like that. There's the local hero, which is like a combination monk, fighter, vigilante, paladin. And I was looking at that and I'm like, so basically that's kind of like how the layout goes for either making Green Arrow, Hawkeye, or Batman. Because you got the monk fighting, hand-to-hand fighting, you got the fighter, I know how to use every single weapon, you got the ranger, I got the two-handed fighting, or I got the ranged abilities. It's like, and the paladin's got like the whole like, I get to be a source, I get to have good powers. I'm like, okay, I can see how that would work out. And there's the naturalist, which is the ranger, bard, king of the wilds, royal explorer. So basically like the guy who is in the city, but knows how to do like city-based, like goes down in the sewers and like takes care of the crocodiles type stuff. Like can go out in the forest around the city and take care of problems, or track people through the city. So the next article is a feature on the city Nagati, which is in the astral plane of existence. So
it's non-corporeal?
Yeah, it's on the non-corporeal plane. It's a old fortress built by some ancient race in the ethereal plane that a wizard discovered, cleared out most of it, and turned it into like this arcane research center where you can rent out spots, do research, create new magical spells and items. But the lower levels, like the dungeon level of it, has like these mutated abomination creatures. Like very H.P. Lovecraft, eldritch horror monsters that live in the basement of this place. That parts of it that haven't been cleared out. And there's a whole like, when you get to the city, they're all like, what are you here for? Okay, are you looking to be a citizen? Are you looking for a visa, a visitor's visa? And the whole economy is based off of like wizards going there to access the library to be able to do spell research. It's a very interesting city idea.
Yeah, that's cool.
The next article is Faith and Honor. It's how to play a pious non-cleric, spiritual non-cleric. What it does with this is it breaks it down with archetypes, so the player can emulate different styles of play based on like their alignment and classes being tailored to certain archetypes. The archetypes they discuss are the admirer, where it's like the god is their role model / idea. They aspire to be more like that one.
Yeah.
The altruist, which pays homage to the god by caring about what they care about. So it's the whole thing of like, I worship the god of the forest, so I go out and protect the forest. Or, like this very serious blacksmith who worships the god of forge and is like really serious about like, this is how you properly make a sword, kind of thing. You got the Crusader, which has a goal, a mission in life related to the god. You got the Defender of the Faith, basically bodyguards of clerics and defenders of holy sites. You got the Doubter, the ones who find themselves lacking and seek to become better in the eyes of their god. They're like, I am not good enough, but I will slave away to make myself better in your eyes, so you can let me be part of your afterlife. The Fanatic, which are the overzealous fanboys.
Yeah.
The Nihilist, basically, when I was reading the description of this, I saw it a lot like the intro to the old Hercules, Hercules and Xena TV shows, where it's like, it's a time when the gods were cruel. And they're like, we just pay homage to the gods so they'll leave us the hell alone, but nothing really matters because the gods are going to do whatever they want. That kind of thing. And the last one was the philosopher. It's like, the gods embody a greater truth about the universe. And they're like trying to find like the big, deep philosophical meaning behind everything. So, in part of like, the gods are like what the things that make creation work idea. They also had some new feats for the pious characters, which allowed them, because through their worship, the gods are like, you can be a vessel for a little bit of my divine power. You're not going to be a full cleric, but we'll let you do some cleric-y type things.
Yeah.
Which basically is like turn undead, get enhancements to your stats based off of certain, certain gods or aspects, whatever you're trying to do. Temporary hit points, help you be able to hit better with a better attack. Minor spells. Basically, it's all different ways of like being able to emulate a cleric without totally becoming a cleric. You just get
so like a layman.
pretty much. You get like a lay druid, like lay druid powers.
Okay.
Yeah. Then the next next article is Fear the Invisible Blade. It's an article all about how to make like dramatic flourishes to combat. And I thought the writer in me thought this article was cool, but the DM in me is all like, if my player is all like, spinning feet of doom, I'm like, what does that do again? Oh, that's my whirlwind kicking attack? Okay. Or it's like, full focus, blah, blah, blah. It's like, what are you, Kamehameha! I'm like, what are you doing? It's like, I'm doing this. It's like, did you say that you're using that feat or that attack? Don't make me have to memorize all of your special moves like I'm trying to play Mortal Kombat here. And that's where I thought, the time where I thought it would be interesting to have like each of these special moves have a signature name is if like, at some point, like they're going to train with a master to learn new skills, and he's all like, "Show me spinning death punch." And they're like, "I will not teach you until you can tell me the proper way to execute that maneuver." And then I like have to figure out what the heck is a spinning death punch. He's like, think about it. What abilities do you have that would match that? He's like, I'm going to use this feat with this feat and do this. It's like, wow! It's like, your spinning death punch is sloppy. You'll need to practice it. When you can show me perfect spinning death punch, I will train you. So it's like, then it's like, and then it's like, okay, show me this move. And it's like, what the heck's that move? It's like, figure it out. That kind of thing. Or, so yeah, I would probably think it would be better to use this when they're like walking past a bunch of some guards are being trained, drill instructors yelling out commands.
So use it for a reason, not someone who is just like,
I'm going to rename all of my class abilities and feats to sound cool. It's like, you're just going to make everyone else at the table do more work.
yeah.
There's also a sidebar on using named weapons. Like, the whole... There was some line in... I think it was like... Somebody had like a snide remark in a George R.R. Martin in a Game of Thrones episode about pretentious people that name their swords. And I can't remember it, but I remember it's like, I'm on that camp of like, unless this is like a magical item of like epic renown, the sword does not need a name.
Like if it's the sword of the king of...
If it's Aragon's sword, which I'm not remembering right now, please put that down in the comment section below. But I know that Gandalf's sword was named Foehammer, and Frodo's sword was named Sting. They're these epic, lost, named, really important swords. If you just bought the sword from the local blacksmith and give it a name, it hasn't earned the name. It's just a standard It's like the whole thing of like, going back to the drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket. It's like, there are many rifles, but this one is mine. I will give my rifle a girl's name. You know, that kind of thing is like, okay, maybe there are times to name what mundane, non-magical swords can get named.
So if I was playing and I had a sword, I shouldn't name it?
If you feel like naming it, yes. Remember, if you do name it, you gotta like, while you're fighting, or when you start your battle cry, or you end the fight, just remember to keep throwing that, use the sword's name a lot. It was what the sidebar was telling us.
Okay.
Alright, moving on. Next article is Venom and Coil. This is one of the ecology of a certain monster articles. This one's talking about the Yanti, going over their society and culture. The Yanti are snake people.
That sounds creepy.
Well, it is, because they have like 3 different castes in their society. You have the purebloods, which are mostly humanoid, but with like minor snake features. Like if the light hits their skin just right, you'll notice like a scaly pattern to it, or like snake-like eyes, fang-like teeth. They're a little off-putting.
Yeah.
And then mostly from a distance, it's like, it's a bunch of humanoids. You get close, you're like, that's a Yanti. Then they got the half-bloods, which are half people, half snake.
Uh-huh.
And then you have the abominations, which are mostly snake with arms and hands.
Creepy.
Yeah. Yeah, they're considered to be like one of the evil races because they have a god that they worship that when the sleeping god awakes, he will destroy the world and remake it in his image. Because the Yanti used to be, or like, usually sometimes seen as like one of the elder races that showed up around the same time as elves, been here for a really long period of time, used to have a vast empire in the tropical regions of the world, and the empire collapsed, and now they've kind of like spread and hidden everywhere because everybody's like, snake people, kill it!
Makes sense.
Yeah. In my D&D world, that's actually been taken more over as the idea of the lizard people because they worship the dragon god of destruction. Mm-hmm. So they have more of the whole society of like, we hide in the shadows and manipulate everything while we wait for days to wake up to destroy the world. Mm-hmm. I'm like, yeah, it's not the Yanti, because I never really even, like, there's not a lot of tropical regions on mine and Josh's D&D world, so we never really use the Yanti, but there's lots of swamps, and we're like, let's just use the lizard folk instead.
Makes sense.
Next article, you'll like this one. Mirror, mirror on the wall. It is notes on magical mirrors, how to make them, examples of new ones, and mirror spells. So, some sample mirrors they put into this article is the carnival mirror, which polymorphs whoever gazes in the mirror and sees themselves as an animal. Mm-hmm. If they fail their save, they get turned into that animal. So you have a carnival mirror that everybody who looks into it gets turned into a chicken. There's the makeup mirror, which basically you look into it, you visualize how you want to look, and then it gives you a +5 to disguise.
That could be extremely useful.
There's the mirror of answers, which is the classic mirror, mirror on the wall.
Yeah.
Then there's the mirror of translocation. It's usually 2 mirrors. You step through one and you walk out the other one.
Yeah.
Spells that they have in here can harden mirrors to make them actually be as hard as steel instead of shatters really easily. You can make things transparent, so you can turn the mirror into a window. And there's also one where you can make your eyes turn all into mirrors. So if that vampire is trying to use that whole, from last issue, is trying to use that spell, attract eyes, but you've got your eyes all mirrored, and they try to charm you, you can you have a chance to bounce the charm spell back onto the vampire.
That's convenient.
That is very convenient. Next article is more of the revisions from 3rd edition to 3.5. So there's some more spoilers for 3rd edition, where they talk about they're going to put more tools for the DM. They've reworked a bunch of the combat rules to make things more clear with the types of actions you can take.
Yeah.
There's more standardization across the board for like monster abilities and stuff like that. So it's not like, well, how does this over here function? They broke it down into like spell-like ability, supernatural ability, magic spell. I made that standard for all the different monsters instead of being like, it's an extraordinary ability. This is the, but wait, simple, easy. Don't have to remember a ton of different stuff. And they also put in some sample monster tactics into the monster manual, which was that groundwork that started the book that we reviewed a long time ago, The Monsters Know What They're Doing.
Uh-huh.
If you want good monster tactics, I would definitely recommend picking up that book. Next up is the Guild Secrets column. Every month they put out a new guild, either to be an aid to the adventurers, they can work with the guild and get some benefits, or a rival organization for the players to fight against. This month we get the Blade Works, which is a guild of weaponsmiths and sellswords. So basically some people that they can go to get gear or training from. Mm-hmm. And if they've been doing jobs for the guild, they can get like some discounts and stuff like that. Or the Blade Works could actually be the weapon suppliers for their rivals in the game. They're getting like, oh, yeah, every time we come across these guys, they got all their swords got this certain mark on it. Oh, that's the mark of the Blade Works. You gotta track these guys down, try to get some information out of them and piss off the Blade Works, and dealing with your enemy having more resources. Then we go into the Wizard's Workshop section of the magazine, which are 3 articles on how to be a better DM, better player, tips, tricks, and advice. First article in this section is called Can You Keep a Secret?, which discusses metagaming, which is player knowledge versus character knowledge. Now, I've played D&D for many, many years. I have a lot of player knowledge that would make certain situations, like I know how to kill a vampire. I know how to what different dragons do. Does my character know that? Metagaming is such a broad topic that you could basically dive into and write an entire book about. So they focus on this one is what happens when the party splits up. And then try to figure out what level of like shared information is, like everybody know everything else. Or do you want to try to limit how much information everybody knows? The party splits up, do you kick one part? The people that are half the players out of the room, keep the other half of the players in the room. Also, like it dives into like magical ways that the party can keep in communication, as well as like the tip of use notes when you want to give secret information. And it's part of that prep work that you should do as a DM, where if there is any type of like little secret thing that somebody can find out because they've got a skill that nobody else has, you might want to have that like note card already printed up. So you just grab a note card, hand it over to the player, and be like, "There's that," and then they can share it with the party or not share it with the party. Mm-hmm. So yeah. Then the second part of that is the next article in the Wizard's Workshop is Fantasy Cities Part 2. Last issue they went over the basics of using cities in games. This week they dive in a little bit more with asking the DM to think about a bunch of different questions and topics about the city. This is to flesh out a city you're going to use multiple times as a home base or reoccurring place that players keep going to. Things to think about and work into your notes is the terrain. Like what's the landscape outside the city look like? You know, the forests, plains, swamps, mountains, seaside. What's the purpose of this city? What does this city do? Like my capital city, Shan, it's a gladiatorial city. The entire city is working around, is the business around the gladiator fights. So there's people that go out and capture monsters and also take care of monsters to have in the gladiator pit for people to pay money to fight. There's the sports bettors, there's the bars and taverns and all the food that are around the city. There's the farmers market and market of arms and weapons dealers like around the arena, so everybody can go and buy all sorts of different equipment from almost all over the world. And then after that, you have like the residential, you have the warehouse districts, you've got guards. So it's like, that's the purpose of that city. Then there's the history, like, how old is this city? Who was the original inhabitants?
Yeah.
Was it part of any major wars or battles were fought at this city? The technology, like, what's the level of, is this a primitive, just tent city of a nomadic tribe that moves around and they just build the city up overnight and then when the weather changes, the city moves? Or is this a gnomish city that's got tons of clockwork, mechanical stuff all over it? Or is it just like a standard medieval thatch roofs and stone walls type city? Or is it a dwarven city that's entirely carved out of a mountain? What's the kind of tech they're using? Which also can be represented by what's the major race? Who's the like, is it a human city? Is it an elven city? Is it a dwarf city? Who's the, when you look around, it's like, okay, we see everybody is almost, 9 out of 10 people, they're all from this race.
Yeah.
Then layout and districts, like Shan and I have it being like rings. So you have the arena, you have the market district, then you have the established business district, bars, taverns, inns, and stuff like that. Then you have the warehouse district, then you have the residential district, then you have the guard district. That's the outer defense. It's like, or do you have it like, this minority group all lives over here, and that's the dwarven district, and you have all the smiths work over here, so this is the smith district. And then you got the overall look, like what's the overall aesthetic for this. And then make notes about the people, who's in power, and who just lives there. And the effects of magic on the city is like the street lights, all actual magical lamps that some apprentice mage has to go out and light every night, or do they have like magical hot water plumbing? How much magic is in this city? And then they went over with the sidebars, giving you a list. There's 2 sidebars. One of them is a list of districts you can have in the city, and then like a list of professions that you'd find in a city. Which I thought that was all pretty cool. Lastly, the magazine ends with, for articles, it ends with Sage Advice, which is the FAQ column. Notable answers. Basically, they were just asking a bunch of. There's a grab bag issue. So, yes, you can deliver touch attacks by touching a weapon or gear of the target. So if somebody's like trying to poke you with a 10-foot pole and you grab the 10-foot pole, you can deliver a touch spell through the 10-foot pole. Lightning bolts or other line effect spells can go down a line of targets. If you're like 5 guys standing in a row and you cast lightning bolt, it will go right down through.
Hit everybody,
but it cannot go through a solid object. So if there's 5 guys in a row, but there's a wall between like dude number 3 and dude number 4, it's only going to go down 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
And again, I want to re-stress from last issue, if you're undead and something affects your constitution, if something has to relate to your constitution score, such as a barbarian, how long they can rage is based off of their con score. Instead, a raging undead barbarian uses their charisma. It's kind of sad that the last 2 issues, it was just restating the same kind of thing of like, if it's undead, no, you use its charisma, not its constitution. And then the magazine ends with a short story set in the Game of Thrones universe by George R.R. Martin himself. Yeah. It was a little bonus taking some inspiration. It's Greyjoys, the seafaring that worship like the drowned god. It's a little story about some members of their family. So I won't spoil it too much, but yeah, little fun thing that there was some Game of Thrones stories in Dragon Magazine.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so which of these articles are you going to be keeping?
Yeah, the I've always had the whole thing of I want to go back and I want to, like, it's been a while since the World Builder's Guidebook for 2nd edition AD&D has been was printed.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's, like, that book could be like twice as thick and a lot more stuff put into it. And I think if I ever do go back and decide to make my own spin on this, I would want to use some of these, the fantasy city building stuff that they had in here into that, just to flesh that out a bit more.
Yeah.
The Blade Work Guild, I like that idea of that guild.
Is that the one where you shouldn't name your blade?
No, that's the Fear of the Invisible Blade. The Blade Work Guild is the guild of weaponsmiths and sellswords. I like that.
So I really want to get a sword and name it now.
And then the Faith and Honor, that I actually need to grab some stuff out of that to put into my Gaming and Spirituality book about the spiritual play chapter. So there's definitely stuff to be used and revisited and reworked through my own lens for some projects that I want to work on.
So, yeah, when you're watching this, you all should ask Ben, like, how's it coming? Get him motivated to be working on it.
You're gonna get the fans to shame me into writing more?
No.
Yes. Alright. Wrap up the episode so I can work on some other stuff so I'll have some time to write tonight.
Okay.
Alright. Later, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Peace.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for staying till the end of the episode. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Follow us on Facebook at Board Barista Productions. And if you want to support us, Patreon link at the bottom.